Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another MSA event. So today we have a very special guest and we have a very unique event planned for today. Usually the kind of events that we have is events about lectures, and you have workshops, more so specifically about religious kind of activities. But we decided to do something a bit different this time. So focusing on the cultural kind of aspect of Islam, and we have Madam Ambassador, the Ambassador of Pakistan, with us today. So we'll be dealing with a number of different issues today, inshallah. So I hope you guys enjoy this event. So we'll just get started with some recitation of Qur'an, as is the custom for us to begin our MSA events, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير صدق الله العظيم. So just to briefly explain some of the verses that I recited just there, they pertained to the idea of unity in Islam. And one of the verses was quite a strong verse that talks about backbiting our brothers and sisters in faith. And a very vivid picture is displayed about this. And these verses, they focus on the fact that we're all brothers and sisters in humanity, and that none of us are better than the other in terms of any worldly issue, in terms of our skin color, in terms of our race, in terms of the language that we speak, except, and this is a religious issue, except in terms of our relationship to God. And of course, more than anything else, above gender, above race, above sex, above any other classification that we can use, the most important thing for us as Muslims is our personal connection to God. And what's unique about that is that the only one who can judge that is God himself. So I hope that these verses, they really penetrate into our hearts so that we act upon those as much as possible as Muslims. So I'd like to firstly thank Madam Ambassador for joining us today, and I'd like to welcome you to Trinity College Dublin.
Thank you.
So the first thing that I wanted to ask was just about your experience settling into Ireland. You recently got into the post of Ambassador of Pakistan. So how do you find the people of Ireland? How do you find settling in Dublin?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your MSA event. I'm very happy to be here in Trinity College. This is my first ever visit, and I was thinking when I was coming to your event that I need to come during the daytime and see the campus. It is very famous, so I hope I get an opportunity to do that. So as you mentioned, I came about 2.5 months ago from Islamabad to take up my new assignment. And I've never been to Ireland before this, so it was It has been a journey of discovery the past 2.5 months, and I must report back that it has been quite an interesting 8 weeks. Very warm people, friendly, open, helpful. And I think Dublin has been a very charming place to settle in, to find out, discover. Ireland itself is a beautiful country, and it has been endowed with a lot of natural beauty, as they call it, the Emerald Island.
Right.
So plenty to discover throughout the length and breadth of the country, and I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Compared to the experience that you have in many other countries, I think Ireland is quite a different kind of experience in terms of you have experience in Turkey, in Egypt, in Houston. The community is very different, and even Dublin itself is quite an anomaly within Ireland in terms of the population, in terms of the development. Recently you went to Longford, which is quite very different. It's more representative of how Ireland is. So how do you find your experience in those kind of environments, which are quite different to some of your previous experiences?
I think every country, and I've lived in different parts of the world for the past almost 30 years now. Every country offers something unique, and that is a combination of their history, geography, and culture. And as you quoted from the Qur'an just now, it is for us to find that uniqueness in every culture. And I get this question asked very often as to what was your favorite country or what was the favorite posting. And I don't have an answer to that, because I think every place that I went to gave me something, and that enriched me as a human being and as a professional. So I think every country was my favorite country. So, and I'm sure when I leave Ireland after my assignment ends, I would be enriched even further, because I have taken something from my stay here.
Okay, very good. I hope we, as the Pakistani and the Muslim community in Ireland, can leave a good impact and a good impression of Ireland for you during your stay here.
I'm sure you would. And I want to quote a saying from Maulana Rumi, who's a 13th century Sufi mystic who lived in Konya in Turkey. And I was blessed to visit Konya many, many times during my stay in Turkey. And Maulana Rumi is somebody that I read a lot about, and who has, again, been a source of personal enrichment for me. Once he was asked by someone who came to him and said, Maulana, I have recently come to this city, so tell me, what are the people of this city like? And Maulana said, where were you before this? So he said, I was in some X place. And he said, how is that place? So he said, oh, the place was beautiful, the people were so loving and kind and helpful to newcomers and were lovely neighbors. He said, the people in this city are also exactly the same. Then a few days later, another man comes to Maulana and he says, Maulana, I'm new in town, so tell me, what is this city like and what are the people like? So Maulana asked the same question. He said, what were the people like in the city that you left? So he said, oh, they were horrible, mean, cruel. They would not take care of the strangers in the town, and they were petty, and they were not good people. So Maulana turned around and said, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but the people in this town are also exactly the same. So the moral of the story is, the message that Maulana Rumi was trying to give, and that is my point, is that it all starts with you.
Right.
So you reflect who you are by your interaction. So if you think everybody is good and you are good, you will get the same. It's a mirror principle, so you get a reflection of who you are in your interactions.
That's very insightful, and it's something that is it's commonly forgotten nowadays. We tend to focus on other people, other people's faults, but even giving a fraction of that time and attention to yourself, it goes a long way. So that's a very interesting point that you mentioned. In terms of your role as ambassador of Pakistan to Ireland, I think some people might not be entirely clear, or they might not know some of the responsibilities or some of the ways that you can help them in terms of representing them on in that particular stage in that post. So what are the ways that you, or the services that you offer to the Pakistani community, to the Muslim community in Ireland, and to the Irish community in general?
So, just for, I'm sure you all have a fair idea, but just to reiterate some of the finer points of what I do here and what any ambassador of any country does in his or her place of assignment. So, Pakistan and Ireland have bilateral relations. And the purpose of sending an ambassador to any country, and to Ireland in this case, is twofold. The first is to build and strengthen relations with Ireland, the Irish people, the Irish government, and these are relations across the whole gamut. So whether it's political relations, economic relations, trade, cultural, educational exchanges, so that we strengthen the institutions in Pakistan to collaborate with the institutions in Ireland. And to showcase Pakistan, what Pakistan is. So for anything that Ireland would like to do with Pakistan, I am like a focal point, and my office is the focal point. Any messaging that has to be done to the government of Pakistan has to go through my office. So I am sort of a gatekeeper for all Irish-Pakistan relations in any field. That's one. The second very important part of my job is to serve the Pakistani community. And it doesn't, not just in Ireland, but wherever I go or wherever the ambassador is posted. So the consular services that the Pakistan embassy offers, whether it's visas, it's passports, it's documents that need attestation for your birth certificate, or if somebody's passed away and they need to be sent to Pakistan. So we help the family to make all the arrangements and to, to take care of them in a difficult time. So we offer these consular services as a representative of the government of Pakistan. And in terms of facilitating Irish people or people of any other nationality apart from Pakistanis who wish to travel to Pakistan, for whether it's for tourism, whether it's for business, we are that point where they can get their visas, and we help them and we inform them and encourage them to visit Pakistan and see what Pakistan offers. So that's in a nutshell.
Very good. Recently, in fact it was last year on the 15th of March 2020, the United Nations General Assembly, they adopted a resolution by which, that was introduced by Pakistan on behalf of the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation, that proclaimed March 15th as International Day to Combat Islamophobia. So Pakistan being the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and one of the most populous Muslim countries in the world. And in fact, wherever we have Muslims, most of the time there's a strong Pakistani community there as well. I haven't been to Houston myself, but from social media there's a huge Muslim community, and particularly a huge Pakistani community over there. So can you speak a bit more about this, what Pakistan is doing to combat Islamophobia on the world stage, and perhaps a bit more about this initiative about the 15th of March.
So basically, and you're all, very bright young people studying in, living in Europe, studying in a very historical institution. You're aware that we live in a time which is characterized more and more by divisions, by polarization along religious, ethnic, cultural, racial lines. It has become one of the fundamental challenges of the 21st century, how to coexist, since we have fears that drive national policies and nationalistic policies that tends to think that the other is a threat to our jobs, is a threat to our houses, is a threat to our culture, because he or she does not look like us, or speaks a different language, or comes from a different culture, or follows a different religion. So the other, it has become a threat. And Islamophobia is one part of this overall divisive world that we live in. So as you're very aware that Islamophobia manifests in different forms in different parts of the world. Increasingly, we have seen caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad being taken and being defended on the pretext of freedom of expression. We in the Muslim world, 54 countries of the OIC, take a very strong exception to this. And Pakistan has taken the lead on many occasions to condemn this liberty and freedom of expression that transgresses and that violates the sentiments of billions of Muslims all over the world. And therefore, in that spirit, the resolution on Islamophobia was co-sponsored by Pakistan, it was steered by Pakistan, and we took a leadership role in making sure that a consensus emerged and that 15th March became a day against Islamophobia. And we're very happy that this happened. And that now incidents like these hopefully would be deterred and people would be aware that there is no example in the Muslim world of any other prophet being caricatured, but the Prophet Muhammad is done in many countries, and it is very sad, and this resolution is therefore very important.
Thank you very much. In terms of your experience, we were talking about your experience in many different countries, and you're fluent in French yourself as well. You're fluent in English and Urdu. How do you think, or what do you think the role of language is in promoting cultural understanding, cross-cultural understanding, and addressing misconceptions about culture and religion and these kind of issues?
I think language is fundamental because it is the word, and the word is the key that unlocks the door to a different culture, a different people, a different ethnicity. And learning languages is something that is a lifelong thing, and I would encourage everyone to be comfortable learning more languages, because this literally opens the door. It opens the door to everything. Yeah.
It's very. It's a very common thing for us as Muslims living in the West, especially second-generation Muslims, where our experience is quite different to perhaps our parents and our grandparents, where we're perhaps more fluent in terms of the language. We can speak English in the local accent, and in terms of the cultural bond, we have a stronger cultural bond that perhaps our parents are a bit reluctant to embrace as much. So it's as soon as you talk to someone, for example, in Ireland or any European country with their accent in their language, it breaks a lot of barriers. So that's definitely a very strong point there. In terms of your interests, I think we'll have this as the last question. You have interests in reading political biographies and philosophy and spirituality, and you wrote a book yourself called Musings of a Nomad, Essays on Life and Living. So a lot of us, we are motivated to read and learn different cultures and learn philosophy and these kind of areas. But we constantly fall short in terms of the way that we manage our time and the way that we can be very enthusiastic in the beginning, but that enthusiasm very quickly runs out. So what kind of advice would you give us as young people studying in university who are busy with other issues, which is, for example, our studies and our careers perhaps, and we want to pursue our interests in these kind of areas?
Well, before I give a more structured answer, I think the issue about taking the initiative and being very interested at first and then the interest waning happens at all ages, okay? So, I'm guilty of that as much as the next person. So, but more importantly, I think learning is a lifelong process. Learning never ends. Even I don't think there will probably come a time just before you take your last breath when you say, okay, I have learned as much as I could in the time that I was given. So, and I think that is very important, to make sure that no matter how old you are or how young you may be, you should be constantly learning and improving yourself. Because being a better version of yourself is a lifelong process. That is what life is about. So that what I was in 2022, I am a better version in 2023. And that comes when there is a lot of self-reflection. So, and obviously, you are young people in a formative stage, building your careers, building your futures. So, obviously, the bulk of the focus is on that, PhD students or undergrads, and I understand that. But whatever time you get, just follow what interests you. It doesn't have to be a particular, I like books on spirituality, or I read Rumi, or I read whatever, or biographies. But, you follow your passion, you follow your interests, so that you are a better version of yourself from year to year. I think that's the best I can say.
It's a very strong point, the idea of improving yourself. And the idea of life being a constant journey of learning and improving yourself really brings that humility in a person that's required. And that'll immediately break barriers, as you were saying, in terms of connecting with other people. The last question that I'd like to ask, which I think is very topical for the students who are here. As second generation Muslims, what advice would you give us, the things that we should focus on in terms of being good representatives of our Muslim culture, for some of us, our Pakistani culture within the West, and how would that be different to, and understandably so, our parents who would have had a different kind of experience?
Yes, I understand. And this happens to not just people here in Ireland, but anybody who has migrated. Migration is a very strong, unique experience that people go through, the first generation, the second generation, and so on, and across all countries. Living in a multicultural society has its own challenges. How far do you assimilate, and how much boundary should you have about your cultural, religious identity? I think people who have migrated are forever balancing these two. It's a difficult act. The first generation who migrated want to preserve and hold on to what they brought to that new country. Theirs is a story of courage, of survival, of hard work and hardship. The second generation has a different story to tell. Their story is more of integration, of making friends, of widening your circle, of being more tolerant of diversity and the other that you find in your colleges and neighborhoods and gyms and wherever, right? So it's a different struggle. And I'm not saying that the first generation struggle is more or less and the second generation struggle is more or less, greater or lesser. It's just different in nature, because that is the nature of the beast, so to speak. I think the first thing that I would say, and I am no authority on how you should be as a second generation migrants in Ireland. But since you have chosen, or it was chosen for you, to be away from your ethnic cultural heritage and in a different country, this is your country of choice now. This is home. So when you are at home, and this is home, then you need to expand. And you need to find out what is common between the host community and yourselves, and find that common places and common spaces to meet, to integrate, to make friends, to have, lifelong relationships. And I think to be a better human being is perhaps, in my book, and this is a personal opinion, would be more important than being a cultural representative of where I come from or where my parents and grandparents came from. Am I a contributing, productive, positive member of the Pakistani Irish diaspora? how am I a force for good for my circle of friends, colleagues, neighbors, community? I think it all begins from there. Am I a force for good, or am I a force for negativity or division or whatever? I think one needs to look at it from that lens rather than a purely cultural, ethnic, religious lens. I think I will stop at that.
That's fantastic. Understanding that perspective, and we'll just finish off there, understanding that perspective from the first generation immigrants who, like our parents who came to the West, for example, and understanding the reasoning behind them being reluctant to engage and being afraid of that, it's very powerful for us as second generation Muslims and young people in the Irish community here, because we're very quick to criticize our parents or that generation without understanding the background behind it. And once that's understood, it allows for a better conversation and actual change. And the other point that you mentioned about focusing on yourself as an individual, unfortunately, it's something that tends to be ridiculed nowadays. That what's the point of focusing on yourself? We want to change society, we want to change the country or the perception of the greater group. But as you're saying, that all starts from yourself. If you're not a representative of what you want to see in society, then it's you're taking one person less out of that equation to allow for that change. So with that, I want to thank Madam Ambassador for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed this event. Instead of having Q&A, I'm sure a lot of you have questions. Madam Ambassador, she requested that she engages with you personally. So if you have any questions, anything that you want to discuss, this is a unique opportunity that she generously offered to give to you. We have some refreshments for everyone to take, inshallah. And with that, that's the end of this event. And hopefully we'll see you at other events, inshallah. Jazakallah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.